Yay! What's up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 419. Special episode this evening with the wonderful Michael Ko, a.k.a. Kofuzi. Can't wait to chat with him all about the 2022 New York Marathon, which he just completed this last weekend, as well as the Chicago Marathon, and he's just getting prepared for CIM, which is going to be super fun. So we're going to catch up with one of our favorite YouTubers, Kofuzi. Welcome, everyone, to the show. We're happy to have you. Sit back, relax. Let's get started. Ginger Runner. Yay! What's up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 419. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Tuesdays to spend a little bit of it with us. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well.
We were joking with our guests just before the show about how we have a little kid filter on our mics.
Yeah.
I'm scared I'm going to start doing the little kid voice at some point during the show.
Just embrace it.
All right. I'm apologizing in advance. Welcome to the show. As I mentioned, we had a little chat time with our guest before the show. We're very excited to have Michael Ko, a.k.a. Kofuzi, join us on the show again. It's been a while since he's been on the show. He's one of, by far, our favorite YouTubers out there, running YouTubers. He creates just beautiful content around the running space. He's inspired a huge community of runners from around the country and the world to take on big distances, including the marathon distance. He's super kind, wonderful, a father, and an amazing creator. We're happy to have him on the show tonight. Before we introduce him, of course, there's the wonderful Kim.
Hi.
You are my favorite person on earth.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Should I do it in the kid's voice?
No.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Kim Tashima Newberry here. As always, we are live. We'll be bringing Mike on in just a minute. So if you have questions, please ask them in the chat room.
And of course, before we dive into the live show, we have some individuals we'd like to thank at the top of every Ginger Runner Live episode. That is the GR crew. It is because of them that we are able to do live shows every single day. Our weekly GRL, which you're watching or listening to right now. Our reviews, our films, everything. It is because of them. They are an amazing community of runners just like you from around the world doing amazing things. We are also doing Ginger Runner Live now live for the GR crew, and we will post it publicly 24 hours later. So if you are not a member of the GR crew and you want to watch this show live, you interact with our guests every single week and watch daily shows and all that good stuff, just head on over to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. All tiers get access to some super fun perks, and it does help everything that we do here. One individual in particular at the top tier we like to shout out at the beginning of every Ginger Runner Live, and that is Mr. Brian Sands. He's a wonderful human, super inspiring dude, has been running ultras now and marathons for the last few years and has just a super inspiring journey. So we're very appreciative of Brian and all that he does for the running space because he inspires many, many people and supports many channels. We're just very, very thankful for him. So thank you, Brian. All right. I've been excited to have this conversation. I haven't chatted with this guy in so long. He's one of our favorites. Without further ado, coming to us all the way from Chi-Town, Mike Kofuzi.
Yay.
Yo, what's going on, Ray?
What's
Thanks
up,
for
man?
having me on today.
Dude, it's been too long. First, you're one of our favorites. We absolutely love everything that you create, and you are fresh off of what I know to be one of the toughest marathons, like road marathons out there, the New York Marathon. So first and foremost, congratulations, Mike. Well done.
Well, thank you very much. That course was a lot harder. I knew it was going to be tough,
Yeah.
but it was harder than I thought it was going to be.
It was your first time running it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I would say, did you hear any stats or anything about the race in regards to the warmth? Like, was it the first time it reached that temperature? Or like, what were the stats? Because
There's a lot of buzz about it being much warmer.
It was
than
crazy warm.
New York Marathon.
Yeah. So I think it was the hottest. It wasn't always a November race, but since it moved to November, I believe it was the hottest of the November races.
Ooh. I remember that I've run it twice, and both times the start line being wear as many layers and huddle under tarps and use other people's body warmth to stay warm. What was it like at the start line for this year's event?
Well, there was like dudes with no shirts on, and so it was hot. Like it was hot already. Like just like standing out there, and like it got sunny like right at the start for me in wave one, and I was like, if it's gonna be like this the whole time, there's gonna be carnage later.
Yeah.
There still was, even though it did get cloudy later. But like I was like, this is not a good way to start a race this big. That is eventually gonna have waves that start way later in the day too. So I was concerned like in the corrals.
Man, it's such a different approach to that race. It's hard when it's cold because you have to get warmed up, and you're usually
Oh,
doing
you
that
have to be
across
at the
the
start
first bridge.
line so early,
So
right?
early, yeah.
Mm.
So I bet it's just a different beast entirely. We're gonna get into that marathon here in just a second, but Mike, I do want to go back in time a little bit because you are on this roll. You're crushing it when it comes to marathon distance and all these races that you've been doing over the last few months. What has the last few months been like since Chicago for you? Traveling, business wise, like busy, family, everything. I feel like you've been up to so much stuff. How have you been able to keep track of it all?
Yeah, I'm really bad at keeping track of it all, so, like, I'm barely hanging on, I guess, but what was nice is, like, going into Chicago, it was actually a slowdown in travel, so with World Championships, I did a lot of travel leading up to that to help kind of promote, that event, going on in Eugene, and so, like, I was traveling all summer long, all spring long, and I had, some marathons that I was doing myself, so, like, from, like, March through July to August, I felt like I was traveling, like, every other weekend,
Yeah.
and then it, like, quieted down, but then by quieting down, I was like, "All right, now I have, like, 4 weeks to train for a marathon now." So, all right, like, so it wasn't exactly a break, but, I mean, it's the best kind of, like, work to have, but, it's been frantic.
Has it been the type of thing that you've had to have conversations with the family of like, hey, I'm going to be gone for multiple weeks, but I'll be back these times? Like, how do you balance that? How do you find that like good balance?
Yeah, I mean, it's always you experiment and you figure out kind of what works. And we did have lots of conversations with it. Also moved out to the suburbs over the summer too.
Cool.
And so one of the reasons for that is, I kind of saw that, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the benefits is that we have now the space to bring in reinforcements. So as I travel more, or as my wife starts to travel more for her work, we've got space where either her parents, who are closer to now distance wise, or my parents can come in and just lend some extra helping hands. So that's part of it, for sure. But we definitely are the type of people that schedule like work things and also like
Yeah.
recreational things too. Because if we don't, we'll totally forget.
And just from a perspective of like YouTube and content creation and stuff like that, has it been easy to keep up with that? Or is it sort of the mindset of, strike while the iron's hot? Like, yes, let's ride this wave of momentum. Like, how's that been from a work perspective, balancing travel, training, racing, family, and editing? Because I know that's a
Yeah.
huge part of a creator's life.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I've kind of had like a two-pronged approach to it. One is we've definitely been like, and my wife's been very supportive of like, strike while the iron's hot. If everyone gets their 15 minutes, I'm at 14 and a half. And I've been there for a while. So maybe I'm at like 14 and 3/4. So at any moment, people could just get bored and not care what I'm doing. And my running's very public now. And then no one might care like 6 months or a year from now. That's kind of how I see it. So like while these opportunities are here, let's take advantage of it and not take it for granted that like the attention and the opportunities will always be here. But on the other side of that too is I've had to kind of like manage my workflow and think really more critically about, what I'm putting out.
Mm.
And so like I feel like I've gotten to a certain size, which I feel like gave me the confidence to make decisions that I don't need to make 5 videos a week anymore, which I always felt like the only reason why this kind of like, Ponzi scheme of views still exists is because I just keep feeding it more videos that do like moderately to sub moderately well. But if I just feed it enough, it'll kind of like keep the whole thing afloat for a little while. And so I'm trying to have like a little bit more confidence and say like, okay, it didn't do as well as I thought, but I think it'll have legs. Let's just let it breathe for a second and hopefully people will kind of come around to it.
Yeah.
But if I keep just like slamming people with just another video for the sake of having another video, they'll never give that other stuff, which I think might be better, a chance. So I'm trying to like cut back on the number of videos. I'm not necessarily that I'll make them better, but just make them with more confidence, I guess.
Yeah.
And just make really just the videos that I want to make and less of the videos that I feel like I should make because it's Thursday, kind of thing.
That's a mature place to be because the platform is kind of specifically talking YouTube. I'm not going to get into TikTok algorithm or any of that kind of stuff because I don't play that game. But the YouTube algorithm is a difficult one to I'm not even going to say master, because I don't think even the professionals who with millions of subscribers have mastered it, unless your name is Mr. Beast. But what I will say is that your angle now, like creating the things for the right reasons versus just feeding an algorithm. I love the metaphor feeding a monster for views and that sort of thing. It's like that's a really mature place to be at, and I see it in your content and your channel and your growth. You're well over 100,000 subscribers at this point, and the community is there to support you. You have huge fan base. Obviously, you see it anytime you do a in-person meetup and that type of thing. You're gonna say something? Yeah,
But
go
it's
ahead.
like a hard place to get to, I think, being a content creator, especially right now when literally everything is content, and people are posting reels every day or TikToks every day,
Yeah.
and just feeling like you have to post just for the sake of posting.
Yeah. I love that that is not the angle that you're approaching it at this point. When you look at something like Chicago, which is your hometown marathon, and you were preparing for it and you're traveling a lot and doing all this stuff, were you intent on making a Chicago marathon piece of content and a New York marathon piece of content? Or were you approaching those races from I have goals in mind, like I want to achieve a certain time and the content is secondary? How did you approach those two races?
Well, I think that the races themselves, no matter like how I approach them, would have made for good content. And so like just kind of like the variation or the spin on that content would have been whatever kind of happened to be my running plan. So it maybe changes the narrative a little bit, but there still would have been like a Chicago marathon video and like a Chicago marathon weekend video as well. So that was always kind of there, but what that race kind of felt like to me and looked like in terms of the content would have changed depending on goals. And so I have 3 marathons in the fall, basically 1 a month. And so if you wanna do that many, you can't run all of them well. So
Yeah.
so I, like, took it easy on myself, and for the first one I paced my running buddy, who we started out, kinda similar, but, he's had some injuries and some consistency kinda things, and so he was like, "I don't know if I'm gonna be able to run very well." I'm like, "I don't care. I just wanna run with you. So, like, whatever you wanna run, I'll run whatever you wanna run. If you wanna walk a bunch, we could do that too." And so I was like, because it also takes a lot of pressure off me because I was like 5K training the month before. So,
Right.
so I'm like, win-win. Let's just have a good time. And, since I moved out to the suburbs, I don't see him as much. So it's like, let's just, make it a way to hang out and kind of reconnect. So, um, that opened like a new avenue for a different kind of race coverage or kind
Yeah.
of marathon type of video instead of the usual like extra dramatic music and like chasing a PR. It was just like you know running with your friends is why you kind of got into running, and so like racing with your friends could be like that too. So that was the idea.
I love the idea. I mean, God, it goes right back to the roots of why we all started this, of being fun, right? Like the whole idea
Mm.
is running is fun. Let's keep it fun, and let's keep it lighthearted, and being able to run with your friends on a race course that means something to you is like, I don't know. It's awesome. The transition from training for Chicago, racing Chicago, and into something like New York, did you have intentions with New York as far as PRs, or because it's such a big city marathon like Chicago, but something you hadn't experienced before? What was sort of your intent going into that race?
Yeah, so the idea was to kind of just train through it because I was looking ahead to CIM, because that
Mm-hmm.
one it's a little bit more favorable for me since it's a downhill race. I think the course, the elevation profile suits me really well.
Yeah,
Um, and I ran it last year and I had a really good time there trying to run faster. And so that might be a race where I try to run fast, and that might be like kind of like the, unnecessarily kind of epic type of music in the background. And a lot of like the grunting and like growly faces, but New York, I just wanted New York to be something in between kind of like CIM and Chicago, where New York kind of fell like on like peak week for me for my training plan, and so I needed kind of like a long run. So I treated it kind of like a long run, and so that suited itself well to also like my kind of fear of the course because I had gone
sure.
out to see it the year before to just watch the race and kind of cover it from the sidelines, and I was like, this is a really tough course, and I just don't know what I could really do on it. and I was like, I'm not really in a mental space to find out yet. So let's kind of like take some pressure off, since I have another marathon coming up anyway.
Yeah. So how did training adjust, knowing that this course is tough? New York Marathon is a tough course. It's got freaking hills, and you wouldn't think so because New York is flat, but those bridges, man, they pack a punch. Did you alter training, or how did you approach it from a training perspective, knowing it was going to be
Um,
like a long run?
yeah. So I didn't very intentionally do much different, except for the fact that I live somewhere different. I don't live along the lakefront anymore. So where I am in the suburbs, there are some, relatively speaking, hills, at least for Chicago standards. So I feel like, I've been kind of hitting those a little bit, and also increasing mileage, but I'm also on softer surfaces a lot more. So,
Right.
looking ahead, there wasn't very much New York specific training, but, I'm trying to incorporate a little bit more cross training. I bought my first like weight in like, 20 years. I bought a kettlebell. So I'm trying to like,
I just
baby
like that
steps
was like I
include.
bought my first weight.
Wait,
Yeah, not weights. I bought one.
you only need one. You only
I mean,
need
I feel
one.
like that's kind of where we're at with our
We have a
weight.
weight as well. Like you said, I mean, oh my God, is this every runner? Is like every runner just has a
A
weight.
weight that you share.
I also
Yeah.
have
So
an ab. So I'm working on that though. Hopefully I can get another someday.
yeah, so I mean, like the New York was just kind of like not ideal for training for CIM, but definitely something that I've got circled real big on the calendar because it was just going to be a lot of fun and just an incredible race. I knew that already going into it, and then then I finally got a chance to experience it with the bib on.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome. Live questions.
Yeah, a couple comments. Ooh, comments. A
Comments.
couple comments here before I get to a question. So this comment is from Drew. This is in regards to content creation, what you're talking about earlier, Mike. Drew says, I appreciate the quality over quantity. And Angela follows up on that saying, as a content consumer, I appreciate that. I am sometimes overwhelmed by the quantity of stuff out there, even though I like it. I'd rather see the creators' best and favorite stuff. So I love that.
Yep.
And then just a question from Michael Hilliard in the chat. Michael asked, how's the recovery between races? How are you prioritizing recovery to keep going at it?
Yeah, so I'm trying to sleep better. Um, and because I have access to pretty much all the toys. And I find them all kind of interesting, but there's none that I like use kind of like, like every single day after every single run. So I kind of like use them as needed, but trying to make sure my sleep is good, trying to make sure I'm eating well and hydrating. Like those are the things that I've been trying to kind of focus on a little bit more. But then when I need help, there's a couple of things like, rolling out like a little ball type of thing underneath my foot, or I just got one of those spider looking things, the roll recovery one. So I've got that one that's like a torture device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one really hurts. And then, I've got like a massage gun and stuff too that got sent to me, and I use that every once in a while. But that one I usually only need when I'm trying to run faster, and I haven't been trying to run that quickly lately. So like my soreness is a little bit different. So different sorenesses, different things. But so I use some of the tools sometimes, but mainly just trying to work on sleep and making sure like the rest of life is good.
Yeah.
That makes the recovery happen faster.
No doubt. I want to get into New York here because I have my fair share of experiences at this race. I've had good days and I've had the worst. And it's been
But I think
like
that's like New York for a lot of people.
a lot of people, and it's by far one of the most memorable marathon experiences I have at all. And it is such a beautiful, amazing event. So, Mike, I'm super curious. What was it like for your first time? How does it compare to something like Chicago, another big city marathon? And was it overwhelming? Was it special? Like, what made it really an interesting day for you?
Just like the amount of people both on the course and on the sides of the course, it was just like there was always people around me at all times, always just great energy. And so like that was something that I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like that. And so like the throngs of crowds like from beginning to end was really quite remarkable. I mean, aside from like the obvious, the bridges, there weren't really dead spots in this race. And so like um like I didn't have headphones on, and sometimes I do race with headphones on and sometimes I don't, but like I can't imagine like wanting to have them on because just like feeling the energy from the crowd was so amazing.
It's special, unique, but it's also it can be overwhelming. Was there ever a point when you weren't able to focus on the run itself, or was it part of it that you were able to get into it and embrace that noise and that energy the entire time?
Yeah, I think that because I didn't have any specific time goals in mind, like I just kind of ran to the energy. And so like at all times, I didn't really look at my watch to see, like, how fast I was going. I was, lap timing because, of course, I'm testing a different watch, and I wanna see how it does, in the city, but, um, I didn't really, like, at any points, like, push particularly hard. I was just like, "What feels like marathon effort today?" And then sometimes it ended up I would look down at my watch, and it'd be like, "Oh, it's moving pretty quick," and other times it wasn't so quick. But I always just kind of like went with the flow of the crowd. And I think that if it were maybe cooler weather and it was maybe like a PR kind of attempt kind of day, I think that could have really messed me up. Just because I know there were parts where I was like, "Oh, I better hold on. I'm getting a little too excited here, or else otherwise I'm not going to make it to the finish because I'm having too much fun."
Yeah.
So I was definitely trying to like hold back a little bit, but I, for the most part, just tried to run to the energy of the crowd. And, I didn't really find a pack to run with, but I was always around people. And so, like, again, that's something that's so much fun, but also dangerous for someone that's not a disciplined pace runner like myself. Like, I tell people all the time, I'm like a little puppy. I'll see, like, oh, people, let's go find them. And then I'll chat them up for a little while. And then I'll be like, oh, more people. And then I'll, chat them up for a little while. And then before I know it, I kind of run too hard and I have to start walking. But
You bonked by mile 6.
exactly. But because it was just a matter of like, run whatever feels like you feel like running today kind of effort. Um, I felt like I got a really good workout. I'm still very much tired now, but um, I just was able to just flow like 100% with the race.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've really ever run like that before.
That's awesome, man. What a great way to experience it too. Would you say you had what were a couple handful of moments that really stand out to you? And I mean, they can be people that you met or
Mhm.
fans that you high fived, or what were some of the special moments that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a big fan of a confetti cannon. So like anytime someone will that I So anytime someone would shoot one off and I didn't, like, know I'm not from New York. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, but, like, I don't run in the New York run scene. So, like, I don't think anyone's gonna be shooting a confetti cannon off for me, but if someone did, I just felt so welcomed, and it was like, "How did you know? This is so nice."
I have
So, like, those
never
were great.
I've never heard of this happening at a road marathon. I love that the opening sentence was, "I'm a big fan of confetti cannons." Um, who
Yeah, I
wouldn't
wasn't
be?
sure what was gonna like. I'm a big fan of.
But it sounds like there were multiple confetti cannons. Is this something that happens now?
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
need to
yeah.
run a road
So,
marathon.
yeah, it's, like, totally becoming a thing where, like, you'll hear, like, a little pop, and, all of a sudden, it'll just start, like, raining, confetti, down, and it just looks really
Fantastic.
it looks great on camera, especially in slow motion, but also it's just super fun to run through. And so, like, all those different run crews, like, definitely treated me like I was a longtime member, so I felt so welcomed to the city, and so that's definitely something I'll remember.
That's
But
cool.
I think the other thing that really stands out to me is that, like, a race of 50,000 people, we start even if you're the same pace group, you start in, like, 3 different colors on different levels of a bridge, but I still ran into so many people that I know. And so, like, without even, like, knowing, like, where people would be or remembering, because I can't remember things once I start running,
Hmm.
like, I still found so many people. So, like, anytime I saw someone, it's like that again, like a puppy that's like, "Oh, a person I know." And so, like, I would just get super excited. So, like, it always amazes me that, like, on a course that's 26 miles long with 50,000 people rammed onto it, like, I can still find people? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense. And so when it happens, I'm just overjoyed.
It's kind of a magical thing that my sister lived in New York with her husband for many years, and so I would go and visit long before I was a marathon runner. But I remember running my first New York marathon and hearing that quote from my family of like, remember, New York is very small. It's a very small city. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And they're like, you will see that there are ways that you're going to see people that when you least expect it. even though it's a city full of millions of people, you're going to run into that 1 or 2 or 10 people that you know at some point. And that's amazing that happens in a marathon where you're just surrounded by 50,000
And
people.
there's so many people. There's so many spectators. The year that you ran, I was surprised that we actually even connected out on the course.
It was I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure you ran into that too, Mike, of like running into someone you know on the sidelines or something, or the confetti cannon person. Being able to pick one person out along the sidelines is crazy, but it happens, and it's a pretty special thing when that happens. I'm curious, what level of the bridge the very first one, did you start on? Were you on the top, middle, or the bottom?
I didn't know there was a middle. I think I was green. I think I was the bottom level.
Okay. I remember hearing before I ran my first one that try to get up to the top, because if you run below the top, you'll
The old
feel
P lore.
Yeah, the old pee lore. People pee off the top of that bridge and it feels like rain, and people are like, oh, it's raining, but it's not. So how did that feel for you? Did you run into any of that?
It was just confetti raining
Oh yeah,
down.
it was just confetti.
No, like they announced many times that like there will be bathrooms in your corrals, which I've never seen that in a race before. Like in the corrals, there's still another bank of porta potties in there, which I think is incredible. But they announced in many languages, many times, that there's no urination allowed on the bridge, and it's grounds for disqualification if you do.
Wow.
And so, like, I don't know if like it's because that used to be a big problem, or they're trying to combat the myth, But like, it's definitely something that's discussed in very serious terms.
Wow, I'm like, wow, I actually commend them, because that was not the case when I ran it. I love that they do that, because it was lore.
Well, I mean, Deb runs far in the chat, nails it. P lore is real.
P lore is real. Yeah, like I'm so glad that they make those announcements, because that's probably definitely going to keep people from doing any of that kind of stuff on the bridge. Curious about the weekend itself, because we obviously have a bunch of mutual friends that were also running the marathon. The Believe in the Run crew, like they were out there in full force. And what was the weekend like for you from a celebration of running standpoint? Like, who did you get to meet? Where did you get to go? And was it overwhelming? Was it busy? What was the vibe like for the overall weekend?
It wasn't well, there were certain times where it was overwhelming, but like schedule wise, it was jam packed. I got there like Thursday morning, like Thursday before lunch, and I felt like I was always like on my way back or to something like the entire time. It was lucky that I'm like training through. I went to 5 different shakeout runs. So not recommended, but like, if your Sunday is just going to be like a long, moderate effort, then, that's okay.
Yeah.
So like I just went to everything, and I saw pretty much like all the brands and all my friends. And so like, it was just kind of like, I filled my calendar with all the places that I wanted to go. And I didn't get to do everything because things overlap, so you can't do everything. But I did kind of get to, like touch base with, at least most of the people at some point that I knew that were going to be there. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I do want to talk gear. We are very lucky to know Mike, and Mike is a fantastic gear reviewer and has been able to test so many different brands and everything like that, and work with different brands. What were your choice items this year in regards to the New York Marathon? And were they, you don't have to answer this, but I'm curious if some were like required because you were there with a brand membership, if that was a thing, or were they chosen by you because of their performance? What did you end up rocking, like gear wise?
Yeah, so I ran in the New Balance SC Elite 3, the New York City edition, and I was there on a New Balance bib. And so like it would have been poor form to, to run in another brand's shoes. You got to, dance with the date that you brought, so like
I'm rocking my Vibram 5 fingers.
Yeah. So like, but it's not like it was a hard choice because that's a really good shoe. I feel like they really improved it. I ran in version 2, on my own choice last year at CIM. And so this year it was like super exciting to be able to like see the new and improved version, making pretty much all the changes that I would want from the RC2 to the SC Elite 3, and to get to test it. Because, like doing workouts is good, but I feel like the real test is running an actual marathon in some of these super shoes. So like that's definitely a shoe that at some point I would have wanted to run 26.2 or at least a 20 miler.
Yeah.
And so being able to do it on, a really big stage, shows their confidence in it, that they feel good enough that they can send this shoe like kind of like its first batch of production units, to put it on basically like, most of the shoe tubers that I know's feet and have them run a race together. So like, they were confident in it, and I think for good reason because the shoe was really good to me.
Yeah. Solid piece of kit. I'm absolutely loving what they're doing with their stuff. I had a feeling that you were running in that because I think there's a whole bunch of people that were running in that, obviously for
Mhm.
reasons. But it just is such a great solid shoe. As far as like the GoPro or the 360 cam that you were running with, what were you running with, and do you recommend it? Like, what sort of kit with that?
Yeah, so I have the GoPro 11, which I use because it's like the best GoPro that they have. But the GoPro Hero 10, I feel like is pretty close, and I don't feel like I gained too much. But it's just like, well, I bought an 11, so why would I not run with the 11? Because
Right.
I also have the 10. But so I ran with the 11, and I'm really enjoying that one. I've been liking my 360 cameras like less and less lately. Um, and I think I just been kind of defaulting to the GoPro a lot more. So I've been running with that, and then I put that on a selfie stick, which I hadn't run New York before, so I was whenever I go to like a new race, I'm always very nervous that like every race has like selfie sticks aren't allowed, and it's grounds for disqualification. Um, and so I'm like, there's always that risk or the worst that would I mean, if they disqualify me for having it, that's one thing, but if they like didn't let me start, that would be like a real big problem. So I'm always very,
Yeah.
very nervous, like, you know, until like the race starts, um, kind of like doing things the way that I do. So, but yeah.
Yeah. How do you? I mean, that's a great point because that's something that I was very aware of. Every road marathon, specifically trail marathons or trail ultras and
Yeah.
stuff, much
different.
more lenient. But when you're there with at the start line of a 50,000 person race, you still feel like I can't really bring out the selfie stick or do any sort of dialogue or talking to the camera type of thing without bringing too much attention to myself. So how do you go about doing what you do and creating in that type of environment? Like, are you being kind of sneaky, or are you just like, fuck it, if they're gonna boot me, they're gonna boot me? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give you my secrets on sneaking a selfie stick through security. Is I usually put it in the bag, detached from the camera, and I'll put like the camera, like just some. I usually have a smaller like alligator clip that, like, in case they don't let the stick through, I'll just still at least be able to have some sort of grip. So I'll put it on that, because that's about the size of a phone, thicker, but like height wise about the size of a phone. So I
Yeah.
feel like that won't get me too many problems. So I'll at least be able to do that. And then I put the stick separate because then someone might think, well, I'm going to use it to roll out my shins later because my shins hurt. So because it kind of looks like one of those roller sticks,
Mhm.
that people use. So that's kind of my my secret. And then, I usually go into the corrals when it's very like crowded, so that way all the people care about are looking at the number, and I kind of just very slyly try to get into the corrals.
Yeah.
And then I try not to be too in Chicago. I'm less concerned because I have experience with that race, and I kind of know what the kind of like attitude and atmosphere is there. But with New York, I didn't quite have so much kind of pre-race in the corral kind of footage because I was like, I don't want to be too conspicuous because it's New York. They take security at a different level
Very
in that
seriously.
city.
Yeah.
And so like I'm sure that there's cameras looking at this corral right now. So I just didn't want to be like that dude that's like being silly
Yeah.
right before the race.
There's that line of like, I'm here to make good content. Like, I'm not just fucking around and I'm making videos with long selfie sticks and stuff to have on my computer and never edit. Like, you're coming at it from a quality standpoint for content for an audience that wants to see it. So I totally get that, but also being a bit conspicuous because you don't, or inconspicuous because you don't want to, I don't know, shine a giant bright strobe light on yourself. um, the video, Kofuzi did edit an amazing New York Marathon video that he posted to his channel, I believe yesterday or this morning, technically. Was
Yeah,
it
it
late?
was last night.
Last night.
I was just for the marathon. I know I normally don't post at night, but I was just like, oh, this one's ready. I'm not gonna wait till the morning. People are up, so I'll put
And
that.
also like a tip of the hat, a tip of the non-elite hat to Mike, because editing something like a marathon video with all the footage you probably shot during the marathon in that tight of a turnaround is such a feat in and of itself. So well done. If you have not gone to Kofuzi's channel to watch this video, please do go check it out. But I do want to talk to Mike very briefly about what he's got coming up next, which is CIM, the California International Marathon. What are the plans with this one? Is this going to be a big goal-setting marathon? Is it going to be a casual effort, like let's just wrap up this summer of like big running, or what's your approach?
So it's kind of like it's been my A race for the kind of second half of the year, but it's kind of like an A, maybe A minus. Um, just because this buildup, like doing two other marathons on the way to a third marathon, is not, like realistically speaking, a good recipe for, setting a second PR in the same, or actually a third PR in the same year. And
Sure.
so, because I set one in LA and then June, and then, if I do another one, that'd be three in 1 year. That's asking a lot of the body, and I'm, not that young anymore. And so, I also have Tokyo on the calendar too, and that's like another
Sweet.
3 months from CIM. And so kind of like this is kind of like a nice kind of dipstick along the way of like, all right, what can really the goals really be? Because I'd really love to be able to run a fast Tokyo. I don't anticipate being able to run it more than once. So I'm like, I get one shot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a huge, from what I've seen on TV, it's not like a huge run club kind of like celebration party like it is New York. So I'm like, all right, well, it's a flat course. Let's go for a fast time. And how wild would that be to do that over there? So, it's like I'd like to run really fast in December, but if I can't, I'm not going to take it too hard because then I'll just have more information to kind of reevaluate. I have been working on lifting that weight from time to time. And
Oh
so,
boy.
incorporating a lot of new different kinds of load doesn't always necessarily translate well to performance for like that first kind of cycle. So
Sure.
I feel like I got to give myself kind of 2 cycles to really give the body a chance to adapt. And so CIM will be a good, test,
Yeah.
and it'll be a hard one. But I'm not putting too much pressure on it, but I just would like to run well,
Yeah.
you know.
It's an amazing marathon, and I know that also suffers from some weather things from time to time. It's been very rainy some years. It's been very hot some years. So I know that will certainly play a large role in how a day can actually look, especially for someone trying to do a PR or anything like that. How has training look for you? Because this is a conversation that I think we could get really deep in the weeds on. We don't have to today, but I am curious what your between marathons training looks like. Do you take a week after New York? Do you can just stay consistent and get some miles? Like, what does that look like from your perspective? And how many like miles per week are you doing in big long runs and stuff?
Yeah, so I'll probably start, running again this week. I've been doing like two, sometimes three quality sessions a week leading up to New York. This week will probably just be maybe see if I could do a workout like Sunday, like a week later. And then I'll have like one more week of, workouts, and then we're 2 weeks out from CIM already. And so it's
Sweet.
like kind of starting to shut it down. So there's not a lot of time to like take off, but at the same time, like, squeezing in one extra mediocre workout like the week of New York Marathon doesn't really do me very much good. So I need to get back out there and do some, workouts, but I got to make sure my body's, ready for it
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. I think to wrap it up, I do realize that we'll probably have a lot of viewers and listeners who are either have just run the New York Marathon, which is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Congratulations to anyone who even towed the line. It's a super tough road marathon, or people who are maybe dreaming of running it someday because it is one of the biggest, one
It's
of
like
the best.
definitely a bucket list
Bucket list marathon for
marathon.
sure. So, Mike, what would be like a couple of tips that you would give someone who maybe will be running it for the very first time, just like you did, now that you have the experience under your belt? What would you tell those people?
Well, the tip I'd give is my tip for hills because I really bad at hills. I don't like them, um, and I struggle with them. And my approach has been to like treat every hill or bridge like a recovery and just like let the pack kind of leave. Just get to the top, like not stressed out. And then you'll feel great at the top and like coast and let gravity do its thing on the way down. And you'll probably end up catching up with the pack. anyway. But instead of feeling now exhausted from charging up the hill and trying to recover on the downhill, um, you just feel like pretty chill because you didn't have to work that hard to get up the hill. So I had to look forward, in air quotes, to every uphill because it's a chance to recover. So that's kind of my tip. There's a lot of uphill and not just the bridges in New York. I don't feel like there's a lot of areas where it's just flat. I feel like it's always kind of doing something.
Doing something.
So, just be mindful that there's a lot of like slight uphills, and those just take it a little bit easy.
That's great advice. I mean, those bridges, we talk about the bridges often when we talk about that marathon. I think it's also Fifth Avenue, I think is a slow 1 or 2% grade all the way up. And it's a slow grinder. You don't even realize until 6 miles later, like, what the hell happened? And I think that's also when I did my triple bunk and I ended up calling you like, what the hell is going on? You're like, you're fine. Keep running. You're almost done.
Yeah.
You're almost to the Bronx. I'm like, yeah, okay. Our wonderful guest has been Mike Ko, aka Kofuzi. We're so honored to have him on the show. Mike, I do want to give you a chance to shout out where people can follow you, subscribe to your channel, all that good stuff. Let people know where they can support the man, myth, and legend.
You can find me on YouTube or Instagram at Kofuzi, and I'm also one of the contributing members over at Relay on Patreon. So that's another place that you can find me. I'm doing a lot more kind of collaborative work and interviews over there.
Wonderful. GR crew and listeners and watchers, you know what to do. Go support Kofuzi. Head on over to Relay. It's patreon.com/relay.
I'm really bad at this. I don't know that that's exactly it, but if you look at Relay on Patreon, you'll find it.
You'll find it. But also go to youtube.com/Kofuzi, and I have Kofuzi written right below Mike right over there. Is again just awesome to have you on the show, Mike, and we can't wait to see what you do at CIM.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me, and it was great to catch up with you guys again.
You too, man. That is going to wrap up our GRLive with the wonderful Kofuzi. We appreciate you all tuning in. But of course, before we go, we like to honor members of the community who go above and beyond. We call it our GR Crew Members of the Week. Kim, who is this week's GR Crew Members?
So I'm going to preface this by saying that this is by far the biggest, highest request to have this person as GR Crew Member of the Week. Time to time, I do get an email or a message saying, hey, I think this person would be great for GR Crew. I had multiple people reaching out, so I, of course, had to honor the request.
Yep.
So this week's GR Crew Member of the Week is the one and only Deb Hamberlin. Deb was at Javelina a couple weekends ago. Deb helped host all the GR crew with the tent and the flag and all that good stuff. Deb also ran the 100K, but Deb went above and beyond and helped out a fellow GR crew member who had an unfortunate trail car break-in.
Yeah.
So Deb, thank you for stepping up and helping out Chris and helping out other crew members along the way. You're an incredible human, and we appreciate you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Deb. We had a great GR crew contingent down in Arizona, running, racing, supporting, and Deb was there basically helping everybody and stepped up in a big way. So Deb, thank you so much. You are our GR Crew Member of the Week. Hell, let's just say it. The month. That's going to wrap up GRLive, episode number 419 with the wonderful Kofuzi. Thank you so much, everybody. We hope you are getting out there, training hard, racing harder, and partying the hardest. I know I am. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Ginger Runner.